I gotta grab my phone. Hang on. All right. Oop. Might help if I put the mic on, huh? I think after months of doing this, I would have all this stuff dialed in, but I don't. I was just adjusting. For some reason, my compressor was hitting way too hard. I don't know if I accidentally boosted the main out or something, so I had to readjust the levels. Hopefully, it's nice and strong signal, but not over compressed. Do you have the 12 lug version? That's the one I have. Do I still have it? I think I still have it. Did I sell it? I don't remember. I have to look. It might be hiding somewhere. The 12 lug 3.5 by 14. That was the first thing I bought on eBay. I don't even remember when. That had to have been 2001, 2002, probably 2001. Bought that on eBay. I was heavy I was playing along to the Roots like every day, and I just felt like I needed something to give me that sound, that early Questlove sound. And I use it a bunch, surprisingly. I think I still have it. I might have sold it. I can't remember. I'll have to look on the shelf later. So anyway, I need to just let everyone know that I'm live, but while I'm doing that, I've been wanting, because I've already sold off 2 steel snares, or not sold them, they're on consignment over at Hawthorne Drum Shop. 6.5 by 14 stainless steel straight shell tie, and then a 6.5 by 14 is another tie, but it has like a center bead, like a Ludwig steel. I just wasn't using either one of them ever for years. They sound great, they're awesome drums. But if I need a metal drum, I usually go to a brass or aluminum first. And I never found myself going to the steels for that sound. I have some Beyer 15-inch steel drums that I use a lot for recording. Totally different world. So this is like the last of my steel Ludwig style drums that I need to determine, is it worth keeping? Does it give me something that an aluminum or brass doesn't? Why is it not showing that I'm live? 1 second. This is a 5x14 rocker that I got on the recommendation of Shannon Forrest, the great Nashville studio drummer. He's also spent many years in Toto. It was his secret weapon. I was at his studio. There it is. I was visiting his studio many years ago before Toto. He was playing Brady drums at the time, but he had a steel Ludwig rocker snare on, and it sounded amazing. I asked him about it. He said, yeah, it's just a cheap Ludwig Taiwanese steel snare. And he says it's one of his all-time favorites. When he had all these amazing Gretsch and Ludwig and Brady's there, that particular day, he had a $50 Ludwig rocker up. So I got one. And I do dig it. I put a die-cast hoop on top. For me, this represented kind of the Chad Smith snare drum sound, even though I know he used a Black Beauty, or uses a Black Beauty on all the Chili Pepper records. But this has a sound. I have used it some, not a ton. That's why I need to figure out, do I keep it or do I put it on consignment? Yeah, Buyer's back making, I think he's just making the 1 anniversary drum, which is awesome. My favorite of his is the 4x15. I used the 5.5x15 on way more records, but the 4 was the one that kind of made me really pay attention to what he was doing. All right, just 1 second. I have to just let all the Instagrammers know that this is happening, because I'm a marketer. Then we'll get to hearing this drum. All right, done. No more of that. So, help me decide. I'm gonna just futz around with this guy. It looks exactly like a Superphonic, but it's steel. It's definitely rolled. There's an obvious seam. It's chrome plated on the inside. I guess this got replaced by the Superlight for a while, and I guess the Universals. Basically, it just means made in Taiwan. You can find these steel shells on many companies' offerings. It's the cheapest version of a metal shell snare you can get. A lot of kids start with these in school band, or it might come with a kit. I think now they're sending them with those really bad wood snares. So if you get a Ludwig starter kit, it even has A on the badge. Maybe that meant Accent series. I really don't know. But let's hear it. Evans Power Center Reverse Dot Batter. Drum Factory Direct bottom. Pure Sound. These must be Custom Pro. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 24 strand wires. Looks like they're the brass Custom Pros. Die-cast tube on top. Triple flange, whatever came with it on bottom. All right, so the internal dampener is not touching the head. If anything, it might just be kind of brushing up against it. Pretty dry sounding for a steel drum. It doesn't feel overly loud to me. I'm gonna turn on my headphones a bit. so let's see, where is it at tuning wise? My guess is it's up in that C sharp over F sharp range. It's like a D, a sharp D. Let's see what the fundamental is. It's like a flat G. I want to take it up to the G. That's where I had the drum that was just in here, the ash drum. Get rid of that super big reverb. There's a tiny little bit of what I don't like about steel drums is there's like a bite in the high overtone. It's like a little bit too much of a harmonic, and it's not harmonics. It's like, for me, overtones on the snare drum, I want it to be harmonics, where it's adding to the timbre without there being like spikes in certain frequencies. That's why brass is really great for that. It's a bit more kind of musical overtone series. Aluminum just has less of them. They're still there, but it's less of them. Steel seems to have these like spikes in overtones. You can really hear it when I hit off center. You can really hear it. And then with that in your ear, you can hear how it pops out when you hit more in the center of the drum. I don't think the internal dampener is going to get rid of that. Let's see. No, it just gets rid of everything else and leaves that overtone. It's not super annoying, to be honest. Maybe a gel would help. Let's see. You can kind of isolate where that overtone's coming from. Maybe that'll help. Yeah, that kind of got rid of it, so the internal dampener wasn't hitting the head at the right spot. So I tend to tap around and try to find where does it bring out what I don't like the most, and that's where I put the muffling. That's usually where I have this drum normally. That's the sound of this drum to me. It's like a compressed kind of Chad Smith, Stuart Copeland thing, but with less subtlety. I definitely wouldn't use this for any kind of real articulate classical style. I mean, it definitely has a thing. It's like an aggressive drum with no character. That'd be the way I would describe it. It's a fast, aggressive drum with no personality. Yeah, the Pearl Sensitone's got to be this. I would almost bet it's coming from the same factory or one of the same factories in Taiwan. Yeah, they don't read, the resale value is not tons. I think I paid $80 US for this. I did put a die-cast hoop on it, which would give me a little bit more return, but I would probably pull the die-cast off and just put a triple flange back on it if I sold it. But you're right, yeah, it's a good one to gift. It's a good first drum. For someone who's playing drum set, it's not a good first drum for someone who's trying to play in an orchestra. But yeah, or like a teaching room or something, because it you know, put a bunch of dampening on it and it just sounds like a drum. Yeah, kind of remember that drum. I think the deeper steel drums are better. The ones that used to come with the export kit. I had one straight shell. Wish I still had it. Pearl Export 6.5. It sounded great. At that time, I was using a really weird head, and it sounded amazing. It was a Remo Fiberskin Power Stroke 4, I think, or Fiberskin Power Stroke 2. It was some random head that I got at the drum shop for super cheap in the 90s, and it sounded amazing. So I think the deeper ones, and I'm pretty sure the deeper Tama was what, maybe it was a rock star, was what Dave Grohl used on some of the Queens of Stone Age record. So those are cool. This is a shallower one, which I think gives it even less personality. Well, like I said, it does a thing. It kind of smacks. Yeah, I don't remember what that head was in particular exactly. It was definitely some sort of fiber skin. Maybe it was a pinstripe. It was just a weird head, and it sounded awesome on that show. Drum Club, I guess, is done. That was largely Ben's baby, and he's been on the road so much that I don't think he's had time to think about it very much about it. I'll hit him up though, because I think that was super fun, and with some honest effort, I think we could really build that up to be something super cool. But yeah, no, he's out touring like crazy. So my guess is he hasn't even thought about it for months, unfortunately. I'm getting a notification here about an update. Never. Can I say never update? Yeah. Okay, so that is this guy. This object tuned pretty high. I'll just lower the tuning, see what happens. I'll try it first by just detuning one lug. Ain't doing much. Does give it some extra body, which is that's a trick I do a lot, especially if I'm on backline drums and I just don't have time to change tuning or whatever. If the drum is just tuned too high for what I need, and I don't want to risk just throwing it way out of whack, I'll just detune one lug, and it usually gives me enough kind of body to get through the gig. So that's what this lug is. It's all the way out, and it's still kind of holding its tight overall vibe pretty good. Let's just start loosening a couple other ones. It's funny, I mean, these three are pretty much completely detuned. And once I add like half a turn on these two, away from the one that I originally detuned, it kind of brings it into that Nashville vibe. Again, it's kind of doing what I would get out of a brass drum. Like if I wanted that, I think of that was like the Chris McHugh sound, where it's like just it's punchy and there's like some overtone pitch bend and stuff. Usually records really, really well, and you can kind of hit it hard because you still have enough tension on the rest of the heads. It was not completely bottoming out. I would usually go to a brass drum for that, because those overtones will be real smooth and rich. This is kind of sort of giving me that experience with like none of the personality. So it's kind of like a imitation version of that, which maybe would be cool for certain situations. Let's see, Tobias, you said Snare lacks character. Usually put a special head on it. And I never use it. Yeah, clear EC2S, tuned pretty high. Interesting. That must sound a bit rubbery. Probably pretty cool. I tend to, like, if the drum is just not offering any real personality that stands out amongst any other drum, I'll usually go super low and dead, or crank the snot out of it and just have it be a pingy, because every drum just sounds pingy, really high. And almost every drum can sound like a wet paper bag in a good way, if you detune it and dampen it. Calf tone on your steel. That's probably very similar to what I had on my export, similar sound. Those calf tones I don't love, I have to be honest. I never loved the Fiberskin 2, Fiberskin 3. So whatever I had was not a Fiberskin 3, because it didn't have the layer of fiber on top. It was more like the fiber was integrated into it, which makes you think it might have been a pinstripe Fiberskin. Yeah, so it's kind of sort of giving me that Nashville studio kind of meatiness without any flavor. It does kind of disappear quickly too. So again, it could have a use. I'm leaning towards I'll never use it, so maybe I should get rid of it. But then I play it, I'm like, it kind of has a thing. It's just a very unremarkable thing. See how low this thing can go. So I think you can almost force. Hey Tobias, thanks for tuning in. Have a nice dinner. What's up, Adam? I feel like you can force any drum to do this with, as long as it's flat and the heads are good. You can get, and there's no extra dampening on that. I mean, let me put the gel back on. It'll just sound even more like a Linn drum. All right, so it's not that difficult to get that kind of aesthetic out of pretty much any drum. Don't like the way the cap tones age, yeah, and I don't like the way because basically the cap tone is a complete rip-off of the Fiberskin 3. How they got away with that, I have no idea, unless it was just the patent expired. And the Fiberskin 3 did the exact same thing. It would bubble and separate and fray. I was hoping the cap tones would have gotten rid of that problem, but they didn't. It's just the Evans version of the problem. I prefer the Stratas for more of a calfskin sound, but it's a thinner head, so it's not something you'd use for playing loud. The Tama Metalworks 6.5 with the black hardware and die cast. Yeah, I mean, the parts alone, if it has die-cast hoops, I mean, the parts alone are worth $100, if not more. So yeah, you really can't go wrong with that. Plus Tama's, everything is just built really nice. I was just talking about Tama with Chris Carr last week. We were just talking about branding and all that kind of stuff, and I was saying if there's one company to really watch, it's Tama, because Ludwig and Gretsch, they have the legacy of history. They were the first original drum sets, so everyone in some point is like, yeah, Gretsch and Ludwig is awesome, but their branding is not awesome. Tama, every detail of their aesthetic, every part, whether you like it or not, is personal choice, but their stuff is great. Built to last. No detail is untouched in my experience. I've not played that particular drum though, but every Tama drum I've ever played in almost 40 years of drumming, even the original rock stars and swing stars, they were great. Yeah, the SLPs were some of my favorite. I didn't love the kits. I mean, it was kind of cool, but it kind of was a little bit like maybe too much to have kits to match all those snares. So, if you have a drum that you just can't find the right sound for, detune the heck out of it, crank the wires, put a gel or two on it, and you'll sound like a Prince record and have that option. Doesn't sound great live, but in studios or with mics on it, it's pretty cool. So that's usually what I do with cheapy drums. But I want to bring it back up, see what happens. All right, I don't know if it translated through this setup here, but I had to go all the way up to here before I found anything to me that was like remotely interesting. Everything else just sounded like, it sounds low, cool, punchy, cool, just unremarkable. It wasn't until I got here, I was like, okay, the drum is starting to do something for me. And we're damn near where we started. That's like a flat G, which is probably right where it was sitting at the beginning when I pulled it off the shelf. Bass drum hoop protectors, there's that, I think it's a company, one product. I think it's just called bass drum hoop protector or hoop protector or something. If it's one that wraps around, but is not too thick, I would check that out. Generally, I just use the ones that come with the just the basic rubber stick-on things, and that's been fine. You have to be careful with the thickness of them. If they're too thick, your pedal clamp won't work. That happened with a prototype I was working on with our factory at Drum Factory Direct. They sent over a prototype. It was too freaking thick, and no matter what, I could not get my pedal. And I have a pedal that opens up pretty widely. It just wouldn't. I had to rotate the hoop just to get through the gig. So it needs to be thin. It needs to be, the adhesive needs to be good. I think there's a couple other brands that I've tried. I'm not going to mention them. One I think was made of leather. It just didn't stick. It came off pretty quickly. But there's one I know that's like it kind of wraps around the hoop and it's thin. That would be the one I would start with. Otherwise, back in the old days, I used to just take the sleeves from the drumsticks, one of these, just flatten it out and put that on the hoop. It worked, or you could, open up the casing and wrap it around the hoop. That works in a pinch. Sometimes I forget that it's there. That's garbage. But yeah, it's not a super sophisticated product. Just needs to make sure it's not too thick. Not too thick, and the adhesive needs to be really strong, or else it'll kind of gum up or slide or whatever, and then you're still chewing up your bass drum hoop. You already had one on your kit and your 3-year-old. Well, that's a good product tester. The adhesive was not strong enough. I assume that's probably one of the thin black rubber ones. Those are usually fine. That's what I think I have on. I don't think I have one on this drum, but most of my drums, that's what I use. Adam tried it. Evan's bass drum thing. Oh, the Dixon lift. I use that, but only on my 16. And it's a 16. It does not have a tom mount on it. If you use that Dixon lift and you have a tom mount on your drum, it will tip over. I don't have any need to use it on a bigger drum. Even the 18 here, I mean, I could maybe lift it up, and I have a lift over in my closet over here. It's effective for, like, if you're converting a tom or whatever, and you don't want to attach a bunch of hardware onto it. It works, and I do use it on my 16 little micro bob kit. I don't know how much they are, but that is good for, because the pedal clamps onto the lift, not onto the hoop. But if you're really wailing, that lift is not going to give you enough stability. I would say it's more for low volume and smaller drums. I mean, that's the one sound that I've found out of this drum that's useful. Let me go up a bit. Yeah, that has like no character. Let me try with no dampening. And there's that high overtone. So literally, for me, this drum has 2 sounds. Let me get it back to where it was. That sound, which is right around a G, and then detuned all the way for the super dead sound. I have no other use for this drum personally, because I have other drums that will do everything in the other ranges much better. I don't know, I'll probably have to over dampen a brass drum to get this. So it kind of gives me that sort of scooped sound without having to do more than just one gel. But really, I'm kind of where I'm at an impasse. It's where I started. This drum does a thing. It's interesting. It's not something I hear often in my head when I'm recording or going to gigs. Like, oh man, I really would love that kind of scooped medium high snare sound with a lot of attack and a little bit of punch and not much else. I never want to hear those overtones wide open personally. They're just like laser beams, and I'll be in there with EQs trying to notch them out, chasing them. So it's an oddball. What do you think? I also pulled out one of the t-shirts that was in this bass drum. See if I get a little bit more tone out of it. Every time I play it, I'm like, yeah, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. It's like a no fuss, high tuned snare drum. But I don't know. We'll see. It'll probably go back on the shelf for another year, and then I'll have the same conversation with myself around this time next year. Not that these are super hard to come by. Yeah. LM402, which I have the aluminum, I have the brass, I have bronze, I have bell brass, I have copper, I have heavy steel, I have like cast steel, I have thin brass. So it's kind of, it served a purpose, I think, at one point for me. It's just always tough to, get rid of a drum. But I don't know, these aren't super hard to come by anyway, so it's not like if I sold it today and I wanted to get another one, I'm sure I could find it pretty freaking easy. And like we've said, this is just a generic Taiwanese shell. I could build one out using DFD parts and probably get the same or not better sound. So yeah, I'm going to probably put it up for sale. Possibly. But yeah, it is still, I think I got this when I was on a quest to like, how do I complete my snare drum collection? And I had a bunch of 5x14 Ludwig style. I had brass, aluminum, black nickel over brass, chrome over aluminum, chrome over painted aluminum. So I was just filling it out. You know, I need a steel. Let's get a steel. And it did a thing. I used it on a couple records. But now I'm trying to get like choosy. I will always go to a Superphonic, a Black Beauty, or a Acrolite first. And if I go to a fourth drum, chances are it's not going to be this. It's going to be something in the wood world. Yeah, what I will probably do is take it to Hawthorne and consign it so he can work his magic, eBay it or whatever, or someone will come through the shop. The fact that it does have a Ludwig badge on it will make it sell faster than if it just had a piece or whatever crush badge on it, even though it could essentially be the exact same drum. It is the black and white badge, but still, it has a Ludwig badge nonetheless. And it's all original parts except for the die-cast hoop. So I don't know. I think if it goes for $100, I would be happy. So yeah, I'm getting rid of it. Thank you. I'm getting rid. Anyone want it? Hit me up. It'll probably be over at Hawthorne in the next month or so. I'm gonna hop off and edit some photos. Have a good day. Thanks for logging on and chatting. Don't sell all your steel drums, but the moral story is, if you're trying to justify a reason for keeping it, maybe it's time to let it go. All right, I'll be back on tomorrow. See you then.